Welcome back, everybody, to the first episode of Talking Triathlon for 2025. My name is Tim Ford. That guy there is James Bale, and you heard it in the title of the podcast. We talk about triathlon in this podcast. Yeah, Jimbo, welcome back. It's 2025. We're obviously off to fly with that introduction.
You nailed it, mate. That was smooth as fuck. Yeah, welcome to 2025, everybody. I mean, I'm quite impressed with us, to be honest, mate, because it was what, 6 years ago we started this podcast and we are still going. We've still got shit to say.
Mate, it's I did say to you the other day, it feels like the triathlon podcast space is getting increasingly a bit crowded at the moment because I honestly I'm noticing more and more and more and more and more and more podcasts popping up. So
They
guys,
won't last. They won't last, mate.
I'm surprised we last, to be honest. We did have
I
that
remember
brace.
the days. I remember when we first started and my Wi-Fi was shit and I used to have to go to the top of the hill and log on to a private network, and then I'd go to someone else's place and log on to their private network and hide in the back of my truck so they wouldn't see me.
I still think the absolute low point in doing this version of the podcast with you, or whatever you want to say, was we interviewed Ellie Salthouse, fuck, probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And for some weird reason, I don't understand what happened. About two-thirds of the way through the episode, my audio
So, mate,
just didn't record. Like, we have all of my audio up to a point, and there's no indicator on. I think we used to use Zencaster back then, but now we use Zoom. But there was no indicator that my audio had stopped recording. So you guys could hear me. I was still part of the conversation. Everything did, da, 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 da. We finished the interview, and it was a good chat. Like, it was fun. We were a lot of laughing and jokes and everything. And I go to edit, and there's just like a third of my audio is just not there. And we're like, well, we can't re-record because we're not going to get Ellie back on. So we had my in-laws were staying
and
here.
not
So
only you couldn't do it in your own house. You had to go
no,
in the car park because your cleaner was there, and you
yeah,
were sitting in the car on your own, responding to questions,
yeah. So I had to literally
pretending to laugh.
take my laptop downstairs into my garage with my portable recorder, listen to what we recorded, listen to the conversation, what you guys said. Luckily, I had our list of questions because we used to write questions back then, and try to remember what I said. So I had to record and then like, yeah, pretend to like, I had to do it all. And then I had to go back into the actual episode and chop in my question. And I had to try to make it all. It was the most Frankenstein monster version of
I wish.
people didn't even
I wish.
realize
I wish there was some sort of recording of you sitting in that car doing that.
in
I
the
would pay good money for that. For
back
that
seat.
for that garage security camera footage of you being like,
I did sit in the back seat of the car too. No, luckily I have my own, like in our unit, we have our own, garage with a door. And I did close the door because I didn't want anybody to see like my podcast of shame. But that was a low point. I think that was when I was like, how badly do I actually want to do that? But we are back, mate. We've taken a few weeks off. Thank you. Firstly, thank you to everybody who joined the Patreon over Christmas to get those bonus episodes. We're actually just under 100 patrons now. So again, now, guys, it's shocking to me that actually that many people support us and listen to our bonus content. But yeah, really, we appreciated the feedback over the winter or summer or Christmas for those bonus eps. I think people seem to enjoy them. I know that it was an absolute marathon recording them, but we are back for the regular weekly triathlon content. If you guys want bonus stuff, patreon.com/talking triathlon. But Jimbo, mate, what's going on? What's been happening in your world? What did you get up to over the break?
mate, 2025 is kicked off. But yeah, I had a really nice Christmas, to be honest. Apart from there was one week, which was last week, where I was a bit sick. I kind of got a chest infection, but I was in Devon for the Christmas period, then went over to France for a couple of weeks, and had a really nice time, a really relaxed break. It was much needed, and I'm feeling fresh and revigorated, and looking forward to the 2025 season with the all the triathlon nonsense that's about to come. How was yours?
Mate, I'm disappointed because I mean half of what I do on this podcast is try to like lay you up to look good and give you opportunities to shine and stuff. And this was a perfect example of what you get up to on the break. And I thought, oh, he's definitely going to talk about how good it was to catch up with his good friend Tim in London. just before Christmas. And it's just like, blip, no, never even happened. Didn't even acknowledge the fact that I flew all the
I
way
completely
to
forgot
see
we did
you.
that, to be honest. The Sunday before Christmas, I went up to London and I got a train into the city centre and we went for dinner and it was an absolute pleasure. And that was the Talking Triathlon Christmas do. And what a night that was.
Should have used the Patreon money for that actually, but instead we didn't. Maybe I will in retrospect. But no, it was very nice. Good to catch up with you. It was absolutely freezing in the UK. I could not believe how cold it was over there. But yeah, I went to Europe for a week and then also came home.
I was
And
when I went to London, I was expecting just to go for dinner with you and Des, but when I got there and I realized that it was a full family night out, it was a bit of a reset for me. I was like, oh, okay, completely reanalyze what tonight's going to be, and I think I did all right.
mate, you were the talk of the town. I think everyone was like, "Oh, we wish James was part of the family, not you, Tim. You're terrible compared to that guy." So I mean, it's the standard feedback we get is that basically replace Tim with somebody else, and this podcast would be a lot better. And why wouldn't it be the same in personal lives? Uh, no, yeah, I went to Europe, then I came home, and I started my training again because I took a few weeks off after my grandma died, and then yeah, so I'm back into it now. I've got my race in July that I'm aiming towards, and just building back into training. Fuck, man, honestly, it's been so hard to get back into training. I think it ended up being about 4 weeks, like 2.5 weeks completely off, like no exercise, and then a week and a half sort of like bits and pieces, especially traveling to Europe. I did, mostly gym stuff, but getting back into it properly, like, man, it's shocking how quickly you lose the ability to do what you normally do, like running. I mean, it wasn't until Sunday, which is 2 weeks in, where I actually did a decent run where not fast or anything, but I actually felt like I could run, 20K. And bike running has been really tough, and swimming has just been like I did a set of 200s yesterday in the pool, and I can normally, even just a steady 200, I'm probably averaging like 125 per 100. And yesterday I just kept coming in on like 308s. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? That's so slow for me. So it has been a bit of an adjustment, but I know that it will come back, and I think that is probably half of what I love about triathlon is the fact that it's never just it's always hard. Like you never just work it out and you've got the code. You've always got to sort of work out a new way of doing things and just graft. So yeah, that's been good.
Are you enjoying it?
Yes, yes, I really, really am. I think like yourself, I needed that break. Uh, as I think I said more on the bonuses, but like last year was pretty tough for me for a number of, reasons. So hard reset. I've made some big changes, both professionally and personally to start this year, which are just the greatest. I'm so happy about so many things. I have a lot of how do I say? I have removed myself from many situations that I didn't want to be in. So I'm very optimistic and feeling really rested and optimistic about this year. So yeah, things are good. The training's good. The work stuff's good. And yeah, I'm ready to absolutely rip it. I feel like actually ready, rest like fresh because at the start of last year it was an absolute disaster. Like from day one, I was like, oh no. But this year has been already, 1 week into work and stuff, and things are going really, really well. So yeah, it's good, man. And probably a good organic place to start then is speaking about things starting well was the first race of the year that happened over the weekend in Pucon. Let's start talking about 70.3 Pucon. What do you reckon?
Yeah, mate, this made me happy. This race made me happy, and it made me happy because Tyler did well, eh?
Yeah, yeah. So we had Tyler Mislawchuk, Canadian three-time Olympian, has always been a short course athlete, make his 70.3 debut in Pucon in Chile. And Tyler managed to win on debut with a really good performance. Now, before we talk about the performances there, I do want to talk about the actual race itself a little bit because Matthias, who is the I guess the pro liaison or whatever you want to call him, I've known Matthias for about a year now and got to meet Matthias in Cairns last year and is one of those guys in the sport that does really, wants the sport to be successful, really cares about the pros, very similar to a Belinda Granger sort of person. Yeah, really sort of took care of Tyler. But when he spoke about this race to me, I don't know what I imagined. I don't think I really had an understanding of what, a race in Chile would be like until
Yeah.
Tyler started to send me photos and videos from there. And I'm like, what the hell is this, mate? Like this place looks incredible. And then when the race was happening, the broadcast was not incredible, but it was
It
decent.
was interesting. I know I put a note in the Patreon WhatsApp group at one point saying, is there a broadcast for this?" And someone sent me a link, and I stayed on it for about 8 seconds before I was like, "Nah, you're all right. I'll just see what the result is like at the end."
No, I think the fact that it was on CNN in Chile, like seems to be like, I mean, I don't understand what the TV situation is over there, but it seemed to be on like, regular television or free-to-air television or whatever you want to
Oh
call
yeah,
it.
good, great thing that it was on regular television for people to watch. Brilliant, love it. But I just was, I it's the
Yeah,
commentary was, I think it was Spanish, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
just wasn't into it.
I still think that for what is a relatively small event in Chile, the fact that they did a better job of broadcast than some bigger races that we've seen in the last 12 months was
Oh,
again
absolutely, yeah.
it shows a few things to me. Firstly, maybe it isn't that difficult to do a semi decent job of a broadcast, but I also then go, well, why aren't more races being covered? But yeah, let's talk about the race. Have you got the results there? Maybe I mean, look, I don't have a lot to say about the female race, just because I'm not really across a lot of the women who are racing that event. No disrespect to them. I think it's incredible that they had the performances. Do you have the
Yeah.
results there?
Yeah, on the women's side, it was Celia Perez from Mexico who took first place with Marancina Salzar in second place and Francesca Garrido in third. On the men's side, it was Tyler Mislawchuk in first place, Jason West in second, and Manuel Mizasos dos Santos
Just a
Jr.
mess, yes.
from
Just a mess, yes.
Messias in third place. And I think the interesting thing about the men's race was that Tyler outrun Jason West by about 2 minutes.
That's
Minute and
definitely
a
what
half.
yeah, that's definitely what I want to talk about because going into this race, again, it's January, it's early season. This is the race that Sam Long did last year, set the course record. Everyone's like, Jesus, Sam's coming out firing. This race to me was because I knew that there was Jason West and Messias also ran a 107 at a challenge Florianopolis or something like late last year as well. So, there was some real run power. Tyler's ran a 29 in the grand final. So like we're talking about guys who could really run. And I was that to me that was the main thing. I was like, yes, the swim bike's gonna be important, but I think this is going to be a run race. And when I kind of do wish that I watched this thing live because I watched up until I tried to watch. I was tracking slash watching the broadcast occasionally until about 11 o'clock at night. And they were still on the bike. They were just about to get off the bike. But the main thing I was like, well, shit, you're going to have at least Jason West and Tyler get off with the front pack now. And I think if you're Jason West, you know what we've always seen with Jason is he gets off the bike with a deficit, much like a Sam Long, and then drops this killer run. I don't think we've really seen him deliver the performances we're used to last year. I don't know what went wrong last year, but he must have been dreaming of a situation where he gets off the bike with the lead pack.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what we
exactly.
saw was
I mean,
exactly that.
the swims were only a second apart. So Tyler swam 23:37 and he swam 23:36. And then they both biked 2:09 and Jason West was 2:09:07 and Tyler was 2:09:08. So they were neck and neck at that point coming into the run and Tyler just lit the afterburners.
Well, they ran. That's the thing. They basically ran shoulder to shoulder until about 17K. And then Tyler made his move through the hills. Now, this course, I said at the start, like absolutely beautiful. Like check out the photos. This looks to me like a bucket list race. I'd love to go over and do this event. It looks stunning. But there's over 400 meters of elevation on the run course. And apparently, talking with Tyler after the race, the hills were absolutely horrific. And that's where he made an attack. He made an attack on the hills and ended up, yeah, putting, nearly 2 minutes into Jason over the last 4 kilometers. And that to me was the like, this is like, a 70-minute flat run on that course, I think is a really good indicator, not just of Tyler's potential middle distance and long distance racing, but it's that message that we've been talking a lot about. And I think it's going to be relevant to what we talk about a little bit later. Long course distance athletes need to be a little bit nervous about what's coming because, Yellow Gaines dropped to, what was it, a 107 at the 70.3 World Championships last year. Vincent Luis ran a 106 in Bahrain last year. We know that Hayden, if he works out how to sort of pace himself a little bit better, is aiming for those 65-minute off the bike half marathons. We got Leo Berger. Like the run's about to become exceptionally fascinating or relevant, I think, with these short course guys because we are in that transition post Olympic. transition period at the moment. And I think that was what it was. It was like, this is the standard now, guys. If you aren't running, if you're not able to run 70 minutes or under, even on a tough course, I think that there's going to be some, yeah, I think the dynamic in racing is going to shift a little bit because I feel like we have been in a bit more of a, and this is just me sort of, talking off the top of my head a little bit. I feel like we've been in a bit of a bike era recently with the Magnuses and the Sam Laidlows and those sort of performances. And I feel like we're about to see things swing a little bit more towards the run. I don't know, but that's what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we might. I think it's definitely gonna, in my opinion, we're gonna see a leveling out of the field. We're gonna see the run coming up to meet how intense the bike's been. And I think we're starting to see a generation of athletes come through. And every generation that comes through pushes it a little bit further and pushes it a little bit harder. And I think it's just going to be another step towards the most complete series of triathletes we've ever seen. And it's just going to keep getting faster.
I think while you're speaking, then I was thinking it's that idea that yeah, you need to be a complete athlete now, and we've been talking about this for years, right? You need to be a triathlete. You need to be a swim bike runner. You can't be a bike runner or a swim runner or a swim biker. Like the times are rapidly evaporating. Where if you have a glaring weakness across one of those three disciplines, it's going to become very very difficult. I think less so at Ironman for the time being. I think that there's probably a very small window. That window is closing rapidly. I know that the Martin Van Riels, the Yella Gaines, like all those guys. I've heard Vincent Luis wants to do an Ironman this year. Like if all those guys are really starting to step up in distance to Ironman, I think that unless you can, you know, not have a weakness across the three sports and transition and equipment, uh, you're going to struggle. I mean, this is look, cards on the table. This is my favorite. This is my favorite aspect of professional triathlon. Is I love this period where the short course guys step up, and I feel like we were deprived of it post Tokyo because we had like a Christian sort of do it, but not really do it, and we didn't really have anybody. I mean, there's a few, but we didn't have that big influx of the short course guys, which we are having now. So this is my favorite shit about triathlon. Like I love this,
Yeah,
and
agreed. I
uh,
agree with you. I think
so
it's going to be really interesting over the next period to see what happens, how it develops, and how like ultimately the long course sport I think lags behind short course a little bit, and it's just going to push it faster, push it harder, push it further, and like you say, bring that more complete athlete through.
well, look back to the Pucon thing. Yeah, so Tyler won the race, won on debut. I think fantastic for Tyler. Outran Jason West. Messias also was in third place. So a really, really good podium. Matt Sharp was up there to another Canadian Olympian. But yeah, great Pucon 70.3 result early season. I think that if we understand Jason West, I mean to be honest, I was surprised to see Jason West racing so early. I feel like look, I have no insight into what's going on inside the Jason West camp, but it felt to me like something was off last year. I probably would have liked to see Jason West shut things down, take a bit of a like build into this year, but the fact that he's back racing, right? I mean, I'm guessing he probably doesn't have a T100 contract for this season based on his performances. So maybe I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that it's a good start to the year. I'll say so. Yeah, well done, Tyler, and all the people who raced Pucon 70.3. You had something you wanted to talk
What do
about,
you
mate.
reckon to Magnus Ditlev, mate?
Oh, I thought you'd talk about Lucy. Do you want to have a little chat about Lucy and move on after that?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, let's do
yeah,
that.
yeah. So Lucy Gossage.
You're English, I'm not, so I'd say
Yeah, I would say
Gossage.
Gossage.
I'd say
But
Gossage.
Lucy Gossage then. Lucy Gossage has
Go for
claimed
Aussie.
a
Lucy
victory
Gossage.
at
Yes,
the
gone, Lucy.
Winter Spine Race at the 260-mile ultra run, which
Sorry,
is known as Britain's most brutal and one of the toughest in the world.
sorry. I just want to. You said 260 kilometers, surely. Not two,
268 miles, mate.
268 miles
It is,
running.
yeah. The 12-time Ironman winner has
What the
been.
fuck? Hang
So
on.
she's an oncologist, and in recent years she's been
268
focused on her
plus
cancer initiatives and move against
it's
cancer. And she came,
429 kilometers.
yeah. So she came back. She came out of retirement, take place in the Winter Spine Race, and she got third place last year. However, this year she won the thing.
Was she the only one doing it? 429 kilometers, mate. Why would anybody ever? I,
I'm trying to find the time that she did it in.
fucking hell. That's outrageous. 429 kilometers of running. And I bet it's not
She
flat
got
either. I
a
bet it's up and down. And God, it's probably on single
Oh yeah,
trail. And
it's like absolutely
it's
horrendous
called the
thing.
spine because you go on some crazy mountains too, right? Like it's on some mountain ridge thing. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it.
Oh, totally. It's just yeah, it's a full on nightmare of a race. Um,
What you got for me?
I think it took her 5 days. I'm trying to find
Oh,
the actual results. Bear with me a second. Talk amongst yourselves.
5 days of running. I just, no, I don't want to do, no. This is Lucy, amazing result. And again, I love the fact that she's doing it for a good cause and trying to raise awareness. But this is horrific. I can think of I can think of maybe nothing worse than running
No.
through the bush across God knows what terrain for 5 days. That's horrific. No, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, it would be bad. It would be bad.
You're the ultra
I'm
runner,
trying to
mate. Come on,
find.
doesn't this tickle your fancy? Surely this is something we're going to see you and you sign up for.
Yeah, eventually. Right. Lucy Gossage stopped the clock in 87 hours, 41 minutes. And the second place was 5 hours behind.
So close race.
So she did, yeah, Lucy Gossage finished it in 87:41:38, with the second place finishing it in 94:31:43.
3.5 days. 3.5 days. Not that's still fucking
Absolutely
horrific.
brutal race.
God
But
almighty.
I mean, I can't imagine that level of suffering, can you?
I don't want to. I did a marathon last year and it was enough. I could barely walk for like a week afterwards. It was horrific. Ugh, 3.5 days of running. Do they
Yeah.
sleep?
Nikki Bartlett's been looking after her social channels while she was racing, and she said, "You're literally my hero in every sense. I know this will be the icing on the cake for you, Goss. The spine part two was for you, for closure, to have an ending your way after your world came crashing down this time last year. It's been an absolute privilege, literally living on my phone for 5 days and taking over Goss's social media. I can't put into words how much this absolute gem of a person means to us."
She's a wonderful human. Like I said, I joke,
Yeah,
right?
she
Like
really is.
while I do joke about the fact that this is horrific, like it is an amazing achievement. And yeah,
Yeah, and the rationale behind doing it and the reasons behind doing it are second to none.
exactly. So congratulations. I always love to see, one of those names that have been around the sport as long as they have pop up again and do something amazing is fantastic. But yeah, I'm not ever doing that ever. Never, ever, ever, ever. I think a marathon will be the furthest I ever run, to be honest. So I'm good with that. I did my sub 3 hour
You're
marathon.
not going to come and do the Beaujolais Ultra with me one day then?
Never. No.
No?
I firstly I hate trail running. I just don't do it. And secondly, yeah, a marathon's far enough. In fact, I would actually prefer 30. I think 30 is a good distance. Like happily cap my runs at 30K and then I'd be really, really good. But no, yeah,
At
amazing.
the Beaujolais Ultra, mate, they give you a small glass of red wine every mile though.
Yeah, you know what else does that? It's called the pub. And I go down there and I just order a glass of wine. And it's maybe a kilometer to the pub from where I live. So I often walk. I don't run to the pub that often. Walk to the pub, have a beer, maybe a wine, and then I go back to my very comfortable apartment. And yeah, I don't have to then run for 3 days or however far your ultra is. So you can do that, and I won't. So yeah, I'm good with that.
Fair enough.
Should we talk about then? It has been a decision. It has been crunch time in professional racing because contracts have been announced and athletes have been making decisions about what they are going to do in 2025. To be honest, it all seems a little bit dramatic to me because it feels like you have to make a decision one way or the other. You're this camp or that camp. And it's a new phenomenon because obviously with T100 offering contracts, you sort of do have to make a commitment. But there has been a few
It's quite
athletes who
strange though, isn't it? Because no one at the moment is giving anyone that impetus to say you have to race only our series. No one's actually got the sort of gravitas to say that yet. And yet we're finding people making that decision one way or the other. which I wasn't expecting quite yet, if I'm honest. I was expecting to see people still straddling the two series, but we're starting to see people fall into two camps.
Do you think, obviously, we're going to talk about T100 contracts now and athletes that are and aren't doing it, but do you think because there was a lot of talk last year about athletes doing exactly what you just spoke about and it not working, and it's sort of been like the athletes were taking the piss a little bit? Do you think this is a response to that? Do you think maybe that the T100 or the PTO internally have been like, we can't let this happen the way that it happened last year
Yeah,
because it's
maybe. I mean, what I said a minute ago about like no one having the impetus to do it yet. That is the public facing. That's what we're told
mm,
is that you can do what you want. It doesn't matter. You can race our series. You can race their series. We're not sure what's being said behind closed doors. You know, we might know a little bit more than others may, but I'm still not hearing that anyone's saying you can only race our series or you can only race this series, and if you're going to race that, then we're not going to give you the contract that you deserve. And yet we're still starting to see people fall into two different camps.
well, one of the things I did hear, and I know we've discussed, is that in fact the PTO actually reduced the number of events. I think that because there's more PTO events, T100 events this year, so there's an expectation that the athletes would have to do more events. And I actually heard that there was that at some point during the discussions, the PTO said actually you need to do like we're going to make that required number of races less. And I wonder, and again, I'm sorry, I just came up now when we're thinking about it. Maybe that was because there was so much pushback from the athletes, or so many athletes were saying, actually, no, we're not going to do this if that's the requirement because we want to go and do other things. But I mean, I look at this from the outside, and obviously we're going to talk mostly about Sam later. We'll talk about Magnus Ditlev. I think we'll have a bit of a chat about what Sam Long did recently. The fact that Cat Matthews isn't doing it, and other athletes still haven't been announced. I am more surprised that that it's happened so quickly, right? Because I thought T100, sort of was pretty good last year, and it came very good to me at the end of the year. I would have thought this would be the year that everybody would be like, nah, it was a start of something great. Let's double down and go well. But it feels to me a little bit also like triathlon. Triathlon is like it's one of those big, things that you can't move it. Like it takes a real long time to try to change the direction of it. And I think that's what we see here a little bit because reading between the lines, or not even some, some have been quite public about it. It feels like the allure of that Ironman World Championship is just so strong to so many athletes that it's making them choose to follow that path rather than this new thing that is trying to, I guess, redefine the sport. And I find that fascinating, to be honest. But then, look, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the wild cards? Do we want to start with the athlete? Like, because there's a lot to unpack here, I think, actually. Where should we start?
I think we should start with those that have said they're not racing the T100
Okay, so the two big ones
because
that have,
that's gonna influence the selection of wildcards and those
well,
that are going to race it.
but I also wonder, back to what we were speaking about earlier, is the selection of some of these wild cards a factor for the athletes choosing not to race?
Yeah, maybe,
This is
maybe.
what I mean when I say that it's quite complicated, right? Because I look at let's start with I think the wild cards is probably a good place to start because it's the positive, and then we can sort of lead on to that to talk about the athletes that are then opting out. The PTO over the break announced their hot shots, their wild cards. These are the athletes that they're just bringing in. So there's 4 men and 4 women. The women were Jess Learmonth, Kate Woff, Laura Madsen, and Taylor Spivey, and the men Hayden Wadd, Leah Berger, Morgan Pearson, and Vincent Luis. And going through that list, there's one thing that with the exception of one athlete, I actually don't know if that one athlete isn't, but they're all short course athletes. These are all athletes who've had incredible success at short course racing. We've got, Olympic medalists. We've got the bronze and silver medalists from Paris. We've got Morgan Pearson, who's a silver medalist and bronze medalist. I think US got silver and bronze in the mixed team relay. Vincent Luis is a bronze medalist. Jess Learmonth's a gold medalist. Kate Woff is not a medalist, but second place at the WTC Grand Final, and then Taylor Spivey is a medalist. Like we have a lot of short course power here, and this goes to the conversation that I was saying when we're talking about Pucon 70.3 and that influx. It shows to me a very I guess a very clear statement from the PTO with who they contract, and I love it. Like I think these are the sort of athletes that I I want to see doing their races because we saw the impact that Martin Van Riel, Yella Gaines, Taylor Nibb had on the T100
Yeah, I could
last
not
year.
agree more. I think if I was the T100, I would be looking to really, really push competitive racing over the distance that we've got. And there's no better place to look for that than those people that have raced short course and can bring that level of intensity and that level of fast racing up to that distance and race to that intensity over that distance. And I think it's absolutely the right thing to do.
Looking at that list straight away, just with those hot shots, which name on that list gets you the most excited?
Read me the names again.
So you've got Jess Learmonth, Kate Woff, Laura Madsen, Taylor Spivey, Hayden Wild, Leo Bergier, Morgan Pearson, and Vincent Luis.
Hayden Wild, Kate Woff.
Interesting. I'm like the one that gets me most excited is Morgan Pearson.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
find him such a fascinating athlete, and we know that when he is on, he's run like a 101 or 102 half marathon. Like the guy is legit. Kate Woff surprised me a bit, to be honest, because she is so young, and I've always seen Kate as, I guess, the next big thing in British short course triathlon. So first, I'm surprised British Triathlon would let one of their rising stars take a year away. I also think that post Olympics is when you see WTCS go a little bit weird. We know Alex isn't racing. It sounds like most of these guys aren't racing. So it could have been a really good opportunity for Kate to really cut her teeth. I mean, she's probably going to race WTCS this year. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, Morgan Pearson for me is the one where I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. This is very exciting to see because yeah, that's the one that makes me excited. Leo Hayden, we saw them. They did their thing at in Taupo last year. I think it's going to be great. But this is when I was because you look at the list of athletes, Yellow Gaines, Martin Van Riel. It's basically WTCS racing, just non-drafting in the men's in particular. And I mean the other one is Jess Learmonth. Sorry, I should have said because Jess Learmonth has been so good at almost everything she's done. I
Yeah,
expect her to be good at
absolutely.
this. Like when we talk about that style of athlete that you expect to be good at non-draft racing compared to the draft legal is Jess Learmonth is that strong strength-based athlete. And I was a bit worried when I saw her return to WTCS last year, thinking, oh no, I don't be that athlete that continues just doing short course. Like I really want to see Jess do middle and long distance. So I'm also very excited about Jess being on that list. So they're the ones that definitely get me the most excited. Any other thoughts
Yeah.
about that list of athletes?
It'd be great to see what Jess can do. It really will, because I think she's got unfinished business in the sport, and I think she will absolutely raise her game to bring the very best of herself to the T100, and I can't wait to see what she can achieve.
We're going to jump around a little bit just because that's the nature of what we do. But the other thing that this announcement, as well as some other things with the Alex Yee and things like that, is what's going on with WTCS at the moment? Because I actually look at who's sort of left a little bit, and I'm, I mean, look, I'm assuming, and again, it's a lot of this is assumptions. The problem is that the dates haven't been confirmed, but I think we're going to see a lot of these athletes foregoing a lot of world triathlon races. And then there's super tri as well. Basically most of those athletes, Kate, Vince, Hayden, Leo, these are all, top athletes at super tri. And I'm guessing they're not going to be at super tri this year either. Like the short course, and we've discussed last year the fact that there doesn't seem to be a huge group of that next generation coming through. Like I can't help but admit that I'm a bit not that excited about short course this year. I mean, obviously it's year after the Olympics, so we know that it's a bit weird, but it's a bit grim to be honest. Like, what do you think this is that? Do you think this is that? And again, to be honest, based on conversations we've had with athletes, we've known that a lot of these short course athletes have been looking at what's happening in the long distance racing, going, I want a piece of that. So we've seen it. But do you think this is a response to the fact that short course is so tough financially for the athletes at the moment? Maybe this is the grass is greener and they're all starting to jump ship.
Yeah, it could very well be. Um, but, the sport will regenerate, and you've just got to hope that with this exodus of athletes up to the longer course where they're going to go and make money and they're going to provide a really entertaining product for everybody to watch, it leaves space for a new generation of short course athletes to come in and fill their shoes. That's what you got to hope, isn't it? That the sport regenerates, that these guys and girls and women, they move up, and then it just fills the space behind them. What we don't want to see is an ecosystem where the current short course heroes move up to the long course, and then we don't see a new group of short course athletes coming through, which is would be the worrying thing.
Is it something like, again, what do you think that? Because do is it, I mean, is there the potential that this could finally, firstly, we know that World Triathlon is a bit of a dinosaur, and we've had people explain that, they're backed by the IC, which means they don't really have a directed to make a profit, and the athletes haven't had a pay rise in prize money in a long time, and there's the commercial, like, could something like this finally be the catalyst for some change with short course racing? Are they, because the
Maybe,
other
but I
thing,
think as long as the Olympics exists and is the pinnacle of the sport and is the catalyst for all funding to go to federations, you will always see these spaces filled by people that want to win those Olympic medals.
I'm not. I suppose I'm sorry. I probably haven't made it clear. I definitely don't think it's going to go away. But do you think that could this mean that we start to finally see World Triathlon go? Like, surely World Triathlon is in there. And again, they're involved with this, right? I find it kind of bizarre actually that World Triathlon is like promoting this as actively as they are. But do you think they would be there going, why are all of our athletes, our stars, jumping ship? And it isn't jumping ship, but it is jumping ship. Could it actually make them go, okay, maybe we actually need to sit down and look at what we're doing, or are they so bureaucratic and so
Um,
self-certain that they're
no,
not even going to
blinkered,
bother?
mate. Blinkered, blinkered, blinkered.
Yeah,
Alex Yee, for example, is he having a year out of WTCS next year, this year?
I don't know. I have asked
Because
that
I
question
can't I
of
I
people,
can't
and
get that answer from anywhere because I know that he's focusing on the London Marathon, which is awesome. So I'm going to go and kick his ass in that.
yep.
But does that mean he's not racing WTCS? Because I can't find that information anywhere.
Look, I guess I've got to be. I've asked his manager this exact question. No, to be honest, Richard Downey's a great guy, and the answer goes up. We're not sure. We don't know. I think that's, and I did. I think I responded to him. I was like, the Olympic champ does whatever the fuck he wants. Um, I don't think he knows. To be honest, this is what happens, and this is more. This is probably a bigger question than just the state of the sport, right? But like, and it's something that I've asked a lot of the athletes we've had that have won the world title or won the gold medal. My favorite question to ask is, what is the other side of that success like? Like when you've worked towards this huge goal for so long and you achieve it, like what is it when you're sitting there with yourself reflecting on what you've achieved? What does the future look like for you? And an athlete like Alex here, I wonder if it is like, well, fuck it, let's. I mean, I've heard this is not from his, this is just the way that the rumor mill works. I've heard that he wants to try to go to LA to run the marathon. I've heard all sorts of different things because, yeah, who knows? I would be surprised if we see. I guess he's going to do some WTCS racing. He probably needs to maintain his funding. I also imagine British Triathlon would be like, yeah, we'll let you do the London Marathon, but you still have certain things you had to do for us. Uh,
You
you know,
mean he's got, if he wants to go to LA to run the marathon, he could probably get within that qualifying criteria. He's got work to do before he actually places in that marathon to a point where he would be happy, judging by where he is in the triathlon world right now, which is, one of the best in the world, Olympic gold medalist. Looking at what he did in Valencia with that,
2807.
no, sorry, not Valencia,
It was, wasn't it? The
where did
10K he just ran.
Yeah, yeah. It was Valencia. Yeah. Looking
Yeah,
at what he did in Valencia, he ran a
2807.
28:07,
Yeah,
which put him in at 29th place. And the winner in that race uh, ran a 26:53,
Jesus Christ, that's outrageous.
which is, you know, so, I can understand his desire to look outside a triathlon because he's a hell of a runner. Like, fucking hell. 28:07 is fast as fuck. But there's a degree into which he needs to improve before he starts being competitive over over these sort of distances.
I also think the realities of pro triathlon as well is that he's not a runner. He is a triathlete and he's sponsored as a triathlete, which means he has a bike sponsor, he has a swim sponsor, and he has a triathlon apparel sponsor. And like you can't then when you can, but I'd be very surprised if after winning the Olympics, and I'm imagining all of his sponsorship deals have, significantly increased to then say, oh no, I'm actually just running. So I would, that's why I think we're going to see him do WCS racing. I just don't think it's probably his priority this year. To be honest, he'll probably
Yeah,
do it
no.
and still win the series just because he's so
Yeah.
good.
And I mean, look, he did say this weekend that it was a bit of fun this weekend, no expectations, just excited to challenge himself against these monsters. So fair enough. He wasn't going out there and being like, I'm going to win this. But it makes me question whether, you know, it's kind of like the Blumenfeld going to pro cycling thing, isn't it?
Mm,
Do you want to be the best in the world at what you do, or do you want to be an also ran at something you want to try?
mm, yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah. I think it's very interesting. And then yeah, I don't know. The other thing is you got the Hugo Milner coming, right? So we've always been like, yeah, he's the chosen one he's this incredible runner, but Hugo Milner's coming and Hugo's on all records a better runner than Yi. And I think the fact that his bike is his weakness is probably the easiest of the sports to improve at. And we saw Alex improve very quickly. If maybe it's a sort of similar thing to what we're seeing, what we're going to talk about with the long course athletes, maybe opting out of T100. Maybe there is an element of going, well, shit, Milner's coming. Maybe I do need to. I don't know. I'm just spitballing now. And actually, guys, head to the YouTube and give us your thoughts. I'd love to understand. But yeah, it's an interesting period. This post Olympic bubble where, like, does WCS even matter this year? Does anybody really care about it? Is anybody really, you know, we always talk about, oh, it's a pre-Olympic year. For some reason, this year, much more than in 2022, it feels like a post-Olympic year is a bigger deal in terms of short course racing. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to bring that. Let's go
I
back
mean,
to
it
200.
might be a symptom of the fact the Olympics were moved. You know, there was a much shorter distance between that Olympics and this one, so it was easier to bridge that gap. Whereas now you've got those athletes that did bridge that gap, thinking, well, maybe it's time to go and find pastures new.
Yeah. Well, look, let's go back to 200 because we've spoken about those hot shots. We've got an idea now of the contracted athletes. And the next point of call is to talk a little bit about the athletes that have opted out of the T100 this year. And the big one that I suppose the first big announcement that came this year in particular was the Magnus Ditlev, who came out and said that he will not be racing the T100 because he wants to win the thing that motivates him the most, which is an Ironman World title, which means he is all in on the Ironman Nice World Championship in September. We also then had Sam Laidlow come out, and I actually think Sam has said that he's not going to race either the Pro Series or the T100. He just wants to go and do the races, the big races that he wants to do to try to win, and then obviously win Nice again. Kat Matthews, we know, is a big omission, a huge omission for me from T100, considering this the season she had. Uh, yeah, this is where we're at to these names that are deciding not to race the T100. Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's kind of what we were saying earlier with these short course athletes coming up. The T100 is not an Ironman distance. It ain't that sort of super long endurance distance. It is a shorter, more competitive, faster twitch kind of experience. And some of these athletes who've built themselves towards this Ironman distance, people like Magnus Ditlev, Sam Laidlow, they are sort of diesels of the Ironman distance. I think they might be looking at the T100 and thinking, it ain't for me. There isn't a competitive amount of money to be made there. I'm more likely to succeed if I put all my energy into the Ironman series.
The Magnus one is, and again, when I look at last year's T100 series, if you look at the actual way that the season went, it's interesting, right? Because Magnus won the first race in Miami, and then to me, it felt like once Martins appeared, like let's go to that San Francisco race. Magnus was in the race, but he wasn't part of that front three. And I do feel like, yes, he was still up there or thereabouts and had some good performance. He was kind of invisible through one of the problems I do have with T100 is that unless you're at the point end, you sort of don't appear, you kind of vanish. And it did feel like Magnus vanished last year. And again, it's interesting because if you compare his result last year to the year before, I think he was better last year. He had a better race in Roth. He finished higher in Hawaii. But to me, his season didn't feel as impressive as the year before. And I can't necessarily work out what that is. And I wonder if it is just the fact that, yeah, the T100 sort of, he didn't, he won the first race in Miami and then sort of didn't feature, wasn't fighting for the win the way that he was in other races. Yeah, I think that's probably a huge factor for him. But then Sam Laidlow is the one that leaves me scratching my head even more because Sam did win one of those races and he didn't just win some race that didn't, like he beat, he outran Kyle Smith in London. Like that London race that was a good performance from Sam Laidlaw. That was the performance of his that really made me turn my head and go, shit, this kid's fucking more impressive than I thought he was. Followed up by really bad performance in Hawaii. And like, I wonder if it is the same goal. They both want to go and win Nice, but coming from at different points where Magnus has gone, yeah, the opportunities probably aren't there for T100, or I'm not able to be quite at that pointy end with the people at the T100. I can probably do it at Ironman. And Sam's going, no, I can do it at T100, but it cost me Kona. Like, so I actually want to focus all of my attention on this. I wonder if it is that where they're both, I mean, everybody obviously wants to win the Ironman World Champs, but they're making their decisions a little bit coming from different angles.
But the interesting thing is, it ain't a Kona year for them.
It's
It's a
nice,
Nice
which is good for Sam.
year.
It's very good for Sam Laidlow.
It's good, but again, how much does Nice matter?
Well, I think if you ask Sam Laidlow, he'd say that it really fucking.
I'm sure it does to him as an athlete, fine. But when all is said and done, when a career is over, if you've won Nice but you haven't won Kona,
It's true, right? We do talk about the asterisks, and it because you could argue that they're going to say, as a two-time Ironman World Champion, there won't be an asterisk saying Nice versus Kona. But what Chris has always said to me is he said nobody ever knows him as a like a two-time or four-time world champion. They know him that he won the Hawaiian Ironman. Like it's not the
yeah,
world title that makes it impressive. It is the fact that it's the Hawaiian Ironman. But it seems like lots of athletes are all in on Nice. Martin Van Riel's apparently going for it. Yellow Gaines is apparently going for it. Sam, Magnus. It sounds like athletes are really actually focused on that title this year. Uh, the women's one, when we spoke about Kat Matthews, probably makes a little bit more sense because it is Kona, and we have not seen Kat have a good performance. I mean, that's first year she was out because she had that terrible bike crash, and then the second time I think she DNF'd from memory. She had something go wrong on the bike. I could understand a cat focusing more on it. Lucy Charles is another example. We haven't seen Lucy announced as a T100 athlete. I would be surprised if she took a T100 contract because through niggles or whatever, the Lucy narrative last year with the T100 was fascinating to watch because she went from I'm all in on this thing. I am T100 ride or die. I'm going to forego Ironman to suddenly a little bit through the season go, actually, I'm going to go for Nice and then get injured. And then it was a very weird, I don't know what that was about. I don't have the insight, but yeah, like I could understand the female athletes, more of them going, no, I want to really focus because it is, as you said, Hawaii. So like I said, I think I'm sounding confused because it's confusing to me. Um,
yeah.
and then like I mean Taylor Nibb, right? Like I would expect Taylor Nibb raced Kona 2 years ago for the women just to see what it was like. I'm fully expecting to see Taylor Nibb in Kona this year, probably at the front of the race. And I think she's going to be pretty tough to beat, to be honest, because it won't be her first. She's going to have more time to prepare. She's not going to be trying to go the Olympic distance. Like she's going to be a long distance athlete. Uh, yeah. And then the other part, not I'm jumping around so much. Sam Long. Let's use Sam Long. Let's talk about Sam Long because Sam Long put up on his Instagram over the break. He wanted a poll. He asked his audience what he should do. Should I race T100? Should I race Ironman?
What was the answer?
He raced, I think his audience said T100, and that's what he ultimately went. He signed his T100 contract. And the question I want to ask you, and I understand you have to speculate and pretend to know something you don't know, but do you think if Sam Long knew who the hot shots were, would he still take that T100 contract?
No.
Yeah, I looked at it to be honest, again, I think Sam Long was probably the most exciting athlete to have in T100 last year, especially at the start of the season where he would have a shit swim. I still remember him getting out of the water in Singapore, looking and it's like, nah, man, there's no one behind you. It's sort of a theme that went on throughout the season, but then riding and run his way through the field. Like that Singapore race was so exciting. But again, look at who was missing. There wasn't a Martin Van Riel, there wasn't those guys. So he ran through and I think he was second to Yuri Kulin won that race. But looking at that swim power, like Vincent Luis is one of the best swimmers in the sport. Leah Berger, these Morgan Pearson can be a front pack swimmer if he wants. You got Martin Van Riel, you got Yellow Gaines. We saw what happened when Henry Schoeman entered the race in Las Vegas last year, where Sam was 6 or 8 minutes, like something ridiculous, and he was just never able to get it back. I can't. I did think. I wonder if Sam is still so keen to do the T100, knowing that he's going to be getting out of the water so far back, and these guys aren't shit bikers either. Like Vince Louis, an exceptional cyclist, Hayden Wild, an exceptional cyclist. They're going to be ripping it. And not just that, they're then as good a runner, if not better runners than him as well. Like we've seen all of these guys running, well under 110. Is there hope for him? Like, are we going to see Sam sort of vanish this year? Is he going to be one of those invisible athletes like a Bradley Weiss or a Dave McNamee or a who else? All those athletes that did the T100 last year that we just never really saw feature. I hope not. But yeah,
I
I
think this
just
this might be his last chance. You know, I think he either is there and is competitive and figures it out, or he doesn't. Because I think what we saw last season was, come the end of the season, it was, you know, I felt quite sad for him.
yeah.
Looking at how emotional he got at the end of races and how hard he was trying. It wasn't for the sake of not trying. He was there giving it everything, and he just wasn't quite managing to reach that level. And unless he cracks the code and decodes it and manages to be a bit faster in the swim, and he's there in the mix within touching distance on the bike, so he can be there in the run. Well, I think it might be the last we see of him at this distance.
You see, the Sam Long thing for me is interesting because I've always thought of Sam as a very good 70.3 athlete, but does have a bit of a weakness at Ironman. Like we've discussed this a lot. I kind of look at this and I don't know where he fits in at the moment. Like it maybe a year, maybe it won't be this year. Well, he's got the T100 contract, but maybe next year is going to be about like let's actually really refine and nail that Ironman distance because I do feel like and we repeat ourselves a lot. We talk about things a lot, but that's the nature of the sport. I increasingly think we're going to see more and more athletes specialize. We're going to see the short course, the middle distance sort of be one thing, but then I still think that Ironman is it's this outlier, and there are very few athletes that really focus on it, and I think we're going to see more of them, to be honest, this year and moving forward. And because I just think that short course, middle distancing is really merging into one pool. And yeah, the athletes who are good at Ironman, like I can't see a Patrick Langer coming back and doing well at T100. I could never see Joe Skipper coming down and doing a 70.3 and be competitive with, Yellow Gaines and Martins and those guys. But there's still hope for these guys. And I'd even start to put Magnus in that camp a little bit too. I would not expect to see Magnus in looking at that list of hot shots and the other athletes that I've mentioned. I would not expect to see Magnus be top five, to be honest. I think that he'd, definitely be able to ride himself to the front, but he's not running. Like he baffles me how well he runs, but he's not running what these guys are running, and he's not swimming with
No,
these guys. So and there's enough of them and they know each other. Their skill levels similar enough, and they're good at all three sports. That I just think that we're going to see that group of Ironman athletes get bigger and
I,
specialize
I
more.
just think we're going to start seeing the T100 being its own specialism. I think you're not gonna see it competing against Ironman. It's gonna become its own thing. It's gonna
70.3?
become the T. Yeah, maybe, but I mean, 70.3 T100 Ironman. We're gonna see a three-way split there, and I think the idea that the T100 can exist alongside Ironman and athletes will spread themselves between the two is eventually going to become something that ain't going to happen.
Well, look, we're doing pretty well this week, and we're about to wrap things up. And I get I don't have the answers. It's interesting to see. I suppose the last thing I want to talk to you a little bit about, and this is you're gonna like it's personal opinion. Get ready. You don't have to speculate or anything. I just want to get your opinion on this. Is Here we are. It's 17th of January, day before my birthday. Uh, we are looking at a brand new season. What are you most excited for this year? Are you most excited for T100? Are you most excited for the Pro Series? Are you most excited for what is the season? What is the thing you're choose? I mean, I get you're going to be interested about them all, but what's the thing that's getting you most excited at the moment? That's probably the question.
I think I've got no interest in WTCS this season. Um, I think I'm really interested in seeing what the T100 evolves into. I think with this new influx of athletes coming in, I think we're going to see some really competitive racing over that distance, and I'm intrigued to see how it develops. I'm also intrigued to see what happens with those athletes that are racing the long course, as in Ironman, and how Nice transpires and how Kona transpires.
So kind of everything.
Kind of everything, but I think the
Not what
T100 is
WTCS.
T100 is piquing my interest most.
You see, I'm in this, I'm very guilty of this, and I just because it doesn't mean I don't like these things, right? And I feel the need to say this a lot of times. People seem to. I'm not a Sith. I don't deal in absolutes. I've seen a lot of the announcements come out of the T100 recently, and I've not like I've been great. Like I said, I love the fact that we got these short course guys starting to step like that gets me excited. But my actual excitement for the T100 just it's the same thing as last year where there's so much uncertainty. We don't really know all the races. We're not really sure. A lot of the venues haven't been announced. I'm still there's still this just like gray mist hanging over it for me a little bit where I just wish I knew. And it does limit my ability to get really and I said it a lot last year. Like I'm very guilty of I would forget there was a T100 race coming up, and then it would be like, shit, we got a T100 race this weekend, and people would criticize us for talking about races that we hadn't watched. I watched every T100 race last year. The problem is that I forget about it, or there was like watching Taylor Nib TT off the front. If she hadn't have had an accident in Dubai, it wouldn't have been the most entertaining race. Like the problem is that it didn't catch me a lot, and this is year two. This is a different version of what they're going to do. I'm not expect I I expect more. I expect more from them, and I feel like you can only sell the dream for so long, and you need to start really sort of delivering on this promise. And from what it even seems they're saying, their goals have shifted. It used to be like we're not about mass participation. Now we are about mass participation. It's all about the broadcast. It's less about the broadcast. You know, I look at it as a purely an external person. I've never seen a T100 character. I have no inside information except we're here. And I look at it and I'm like, I'm not frothing for it, right? I'm curious and I'm keen to see those guys race and things like that. But there's nothing yet that's. In fact, I'm probably more fascinated by the fact that the Magnuses and that are quite publicly saying, no, we're not behind it. Like that to me is the thing that I'm most curious about, which is, I suppose, missing the point of it all a little bit. I don't know. So I couldn't give a shit about WTCS this year at all. Like I actually don't care.
No, I
Um,
hear you. I'm excited about the things I know, but I'm more interested in the things that I don't know.
yeah, that's a good point.
It's like, what is driving these decisions that we're seeing being made? And I don't know the answer to that, and that's what intrigues me most.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we discussed it on the Patreon group where I think it was Pro Training just put up their list of they do a great job of I think keeping everybody up to date, much better than what we do. We don't do that thing here, but these are all the races that are confirmed. And one of the things they said was, the PTO didn't release or refuse to comment or whatever they said on their list of races, and it's kind of true, right? Like we should be. I mean, especially if they are moving down the mass participation model, you need to announce this stuff well in advance. Like, it is this triathlon thing where everything is always left to the last minute, and we're just expected to like, oh yeah, cool. I just feel like it's at this point now where we should be able to say, no, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it, and follow through on it, not have a grand final that then doesn't happen, like a month out from the end, or we have to change the point structure because of like, no, we can't be doing this stuff anymore. And this isn't just like Ironman. We know every Ironman pro race next year. We know the pro series of things. We know when it starts. We know when it ends. It's there. Athletes are able to very clearly line out their season. And whether the athletes have been notified, I bet from what I hear at least, they still don't know every race. Yeah, it's concerning, and it doesn't seem to be improving, mate. It is my main point. So, yeah, I'm not like I said. I love it. I think the T100 is going to be fantastic. I absolutely love the way it wrapped up last year. I think the women's race is a mute point. I don't think there's any point in any other female showing up this season except Taylor Nibb. Men's race, I think, is wide open. I don't think Martin. Here's a call. I don't think Martin Van Riel is going to win the T100 this year. I think his.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a lot more competition at the front of the race than he has in the past, which
But
is
he's the
again
fucking
exciting.
chosen one.
He is, but yeah, who knows? Again, he's doing Ironman races and all sorts of bits and pieces now, and I just think that yeah, there's some new people coming in that have some more firepower, so it'll be interesting.
And this is what interests me so much. I think look, I love Iron Man. I love Iron Man racing for what it is. I love what it takes to win an Ironman, what it takes to win the Ironman World Championship, the dedication, the commitment, the the dialing in of getting everything right to win a race like that. But I think we're going to see much more competitive finishes over the T100 series. I think
Mm.
we're going to see sprint finishes. We're going to see people coming in four abreast into that last couple of kilometers, and we're going to see a lot more exciting racing on that series.
I just need the courses need to match it too because I want to see the exciting races on exciting courses, not just a longer version of WCS. But yeah, anyway, that's it for this week, mate. We are easing back in. Week one done, guys. Thank you for coming back. We hope you all had a great Christmas. Thank you for bearing with us and allowing us to have a few weeks off. It was very much appreciated. If you want to get on board this year and support the podcast, head to patreon.com/talking triathlon. Jimbo, if they want to do all the other stuff, what do they need to do?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at tford14 on Insta, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We are on Instagram as at Talk Triathlon. No, we're not. We're on Instagram at Talking Triathlon, and we're not on Twitter because Twitter sucks. If you want to join the Patreon group, get access to the monthly bonus episodes and the social group, then join us at patreon.com/talking triathlon, and we'll add you to the WhatsApp group as well, which is the main source of goodness for all that we do.
James Bale, you know how we talk about the curse of the podcast?
Yeah, man.
I think we might be spared a little bit just because it looks like they have announced the rest of the contracted athletes, for the men's at least, at time of recording. So I just wanted to put this in there. We'll discuss it more next week. But the additional men's contracts are Mika Newt, Gregory Barnaby, Justus Nishlag, Antonio Benito Lopez, Jason West, Nicholas Mann, and Mino Koolhaas. So I just wanted to get that in there.
Cool.
We're done for this week. It literally, I think it posted 30 minutes ago. So right while we were recording, I should have checked while we were doing it. But we'll talk about that next week. But my initial thoughts are I don't think they're going to make much of an impact compared to some of those hot shots. Cool.
Agree.
Talk to you later, mate.
Cheerio.